talking to you today about the Class 4 sector in New Zealand. I have collaborated with my colleagues at NZCT and Pub Charity, and you'll see throughout the presentation that I'm trying to give you a little bit more of a comparison. First point to note, as per the first slide, is very simply there are over 37 different societies that distribute funding for a wide variety of authorised purpose. It is suggested that all of these societies operate differently. We all do. Some have paper applications, some don't. Some fund sports, some don't. Some fund religion, some don't. I think it's very important that you understand in your area, the area in which you operate, okay, that will be Auckland, who is there, what societies are operating gaming machines at the various pubs in your area. To do this, I've put up a DIA website link, which should give you an information of the name of the bar and who operates the gaming machine at that venue. It is also important to note that the gaming machine profits, which are distributed, depend largely on the venue turnover. So it stands to reason that if a venue has only got 3 pokies versus another venue from a different society that might have 18 pokies, the venue with 3 isn't going to generate nearly as much as that which has 18. So these factors also need to be borne in mind when you are looking to apply to an organisation like the Lion Foundation or Pub Charity. So I'll give you an example. In Nelson, in the South Island, or mostly, actually not Nelson, but Marlborough, Pub Charity has a lot more venues than the Lion Foundation does. It would therefore make sense for you to apply to Pub Charity, if you were in Marlborough, for a larger amount of funding than you would necessarily apply to the Lion Foundation, because we've got 1 or 2 venues, they may have 9. So their amount of money in that region would be higher. All right, hopefully I can get to the next slide. Right, criteria for funding. I've tried to give you an idea of the similarities, and again, I'm talking about the Lion Foundation, Pub Charity, and also the New Zealand Community Trust, otherwise known to most of you as NZCT. First thing, authorised purpose, Gambling Act. We can't give you money, we can't distribute money for anything which isn't an authorised purpose. All 3 of us return funds locally. That means we need to have venues in the area. However, there are some instances, we call it regionalising a grant, where, for example, take your classic ambulance situation. The ambulance that we purchase, well, we distribute funding to be able to allow St John's to purchase it, doesn't stop at an imaginary border. So sometimes we might pull funding from Auckland, we might pull it from Waikato Bay of Plenty to fund a larger amount. So all 3 of us do this as well, but the key is has to be a community of interest between the 2 or more areas. All 3 of us fund correctly incorporated bodies. So we would not be funding a partnership or an individual. It has to be an incorporated, or another word for that is a juristic body. We do not fund organisations that operate their own gaming machines. Stands to reason, in fact, that would be funding our competitor. And all of us require that if you have received a grant, that accountability or audit for that particular grant is finalised before you ask for further funding. All right, specifically Lion Foundation, I've given you our website. It is crucial. The one thing that Ben Hodges and Ashley, Ashley's from Pub Charity, said to me in preparing for this was, please ask the attendees to do proper research. Understand what our grants criteria are, understand what paperwork we need, and do not take a chance knowing that you're not going to qualify for what we fund. So, for example, I was reading up on Pub Charity's website in preparation for this. They don't like to fund things like affiliation fees or salaries or bog standard operating costs. We, on the other hand, we do fund things like affiliation fees, utility expenses, rates and taxes. We do fund those. So it is imperative that you understand who you are asking for money. This is a mistake that professional fundraisers often make. They do a generic and they send it out. We've cottoned on to that. So please try and research because you're going to save yourself and ourselves a lot of pain. So on our website, we have got some criteria. We are slightly different re our tax exemption requirement. That is not a requirement that I don't believe Pub Charity or NZCT have. So please, on our website, there is a document which you can view, which will explain that. Our difference is we only fund an organization once every 12 months. And as I've said there, it's a successful application. So if we decline you once, pick up the phone, understand where you went wrong, and apply again. So it's a successful application. I have said there, if you want to apply for salaries and we have not funded your organization before, or we have not funded salaries before, please pick up the phone to me. It will save us both a lot of headache. Right, so criteria for funding, again, just giving you a little bit of an idea of what Pub Charity and NZCT do, as well as their websites. Again, I can only urge you to be very clear about what you are applying and to whom you are applying for or from. Both NZCT and ourselves do not have deadlines as to when you can submit your application. Pub Charity, on the other hand, does. So, for example, on their website currently, it says if you want funding now, you need to have submitted your application by a certain date. We will process it by a certain date, and then we will give you an outcome by a certain date. Both Pub Charity and NZCT, I believe, do not email each grant recipient independently to advise of a grant being approved or declined, whereas the Lion Foundation does. Now, the important part, I think I'll just jump through a couple of funding tips here. Now, the important part of waiting for communication about your grant being approved is this very first notion that funds cannot be distributed to reimburse you. That implies that you couldn't have spent the money already. So be careful of that, because if you have spent the money, you're in for a double whammy, because now you've spent the money and you have to refund what you thought you had. So it's costing you, in my silly little mind, double. Please also understand funding tips. I can't tell you how to actually write to us. What I can tell you is we deal with about 400 applications per month. I've got a team of 3 grants advisors, and we process each and every application. We don't look at it and go, yeah, nah. We process and assess each and every application. So what we don't need, for example, is if you have got a quote for a project that you're doing, and the quote is 25 pages long of mostly of superfluous information telling us how brilliant the matting is and how these soccer balls are the best soccer balls. I don't want to say I don't care, but ultimately what we're interested in is how much that matting is costing and how much those soccer balls are costing. So cut the chaff. Let's get rid of, let's get rid of all the leaves and just give us the corn. Let's go for that. That's the easiest way I can express that to you. The other funding tip is we will always tell you what your authorized purpose is. In other words, you can spend the money on buying a trailer. So therefore, do not spend the money buying a bus. Buy the trailer, not the bus. If you want to buy the bus, you've got to get hold of us first in the first instance, and only if, and this is standard for all three of us, I'm talking Pub Charity, NZCT, and Lion Foundation, if we tell you in a telephonic conversation it's okay, please demand that we write to you and confirm that in writing. If it's not in writing, we will deny it ever happened. So please, in writing. It's important that you actually articulate your main priorities, what it is you actually hope to achieve as an organization and as a result of the funding. We like to hear that you're going to make a positive difference in the community. The fact that you may be a wealthy organization or have your registered address happens to be in Remuera, that does not preclude you from getting funding. For example, I'll give you Starship. Starship has got quite a large amount of money in their bank account, but they can't use that money for everyday items. A lot of that money has been tagged for, it's been received as a result of an inheritance, and the inheritance has specifically said this money may only be used to buy incubators. So therefore they cannot use that money to buy anything other than incubators. So it is important that you let us understand if you've got a massive operating surplus, tell us why, because then we can look at it and go, well, yeah, they still need the money. Because yes, indeed, if you have got a massive amount of money in your bank account from your P&L, yeah, then we're going to probably favor the organization that doesn't have any money and is still going to have a really positive difference in their community. Letters of support are always valuable. They may help, they may not help. Again, 2 or 3 should suffice, but let's not give us a novel of those. And then the final point on this is we are really grateful for any recognition that you give us, because unfortunately we operate in an area where there is a lot of negative press, and now and again it is nice to receive some positive press as a result of the distribution of gaming machine profits. I've got some tips. When you're applying to us for the grant specific purpose, I think that slide says it all. Apply for the manager's salary. Don't apply for Tom Smith's salary, because as you all know, people come and go. And the moment if we've funded or distributed money for Tom Smith's salary and he leaves you, you have to refund whatever you can't account for. You cannot simply transfer it to John Stevens, for example. So apply for a manager's salary. A grant specific purpose, apply for a van. Don't apply for a Hiace Toyota van, because then you are bound to buy the Hiace Toyota van. If you say, I want a van, you can buy a Ford van, a Toyota van, a Hyundai van. So it's just a couple of little tips about that. We learned in COVID that when people were asking for events for St. Paddy's Day, well, St. Paddy's Day was cancelled, and people said to us, well, can we use it for another event? And we said, look, we're really sorry, but you asked us for St. Paddy's Day funding. St. Paddy's Day didn't happen. Your event didn't happen. You have to give it back to us. Just some very subtle little hints. Again, saying thank you. I've put up, if you want to say thank you to the Lion Foundation, get hold of Paul Hayes at that address. But from the perspective of both NZCT and Pub Charity, get hold of them on their website. They tell you how to acknowledge them. They tell you how to access their logos. And please just get in touch with them in that regard. Finally, I hope I have addressed some of the points that you wanted us to deal with. I could do this all day and probably still have a lot of questions. Feel free to give me a ring or my senior grants advisor, Shilpa. I've got no problem. My phone number, if you've got a pen and paper, is 0272 088 588. You can send me a text and I can get back in touch with you, or you're welcome to go on our website, and my email address is on our website. So key takeaways: research who you are applying to, understand what they distribute money for, and you will hopefully be successful.